Well, hello everyone. I want to welcome you to a little bit of a different kind of video today. This week, I thought, well, we are wrapping up all of the high-end battle content for A Realm Reborn, and so I figured it would be fun to put them into a tier list as a way also for me to explain sort of my thought processes when it came to doing all these fights, kind of how it felt to prog them, and everything around doing them for Patchlock. Now, a couple things I want to note before I start the list is that first, all the fights were done with the jobs restricted to their time period. So for T1 through T9, including the Savages, we were only allowed to use White Mage, Scholar, Warrior, Paladin, Monk, Dragoon, Bard, Summoner, or Black Mage, so the 2.0 jobs. When we did Final Coil, we had the option to use Ninja. I don't believe we did, but it was available. Pretty much all of these fights were done at either Mine or 5 item level below Mine, except for Avatar and Nail Normal, but I'll get to this when we talk about the fight. We were also locked to use it on content gear. So when we did First Coil, we're only allowed to use the 2.0 Capstone gear. For Second Coil, we're only allowed to use the 2.0 crafted gear, etc., all that stuff. And finally, I want to also note that most of these fights are being talked about from specifically a healer perspective. I've been doing pretty much all of these fights as either White Mage or Scholar. For a couple fights, I have shuffled around, especially for the extremes, but for all of the other rating content, it has been almost exclusively on healer, so I'll be talking about them from that perspective. Now, without any further ado, we're going to get started with the first fight, the first turn of the Binding Coils with Caduceus. But for that first turn, I want to first mention that, of course, with it being the first tier of raid content, the first 5 fights, they kind of were needed to get their footing. They were building off of other ideas from other games. For the first fight, none of the approach mobs were really that special. The ADS mini-boss was okay. Being able to use Interject in a high-end raiding situation was really nice. Mapping the realm was kind of a pain because you always had to go out of your way on that one little side path in order to make sure that you finished mapping. Otherwise, you would have to go back in again. For Caduceus, most of the mechanics you were able to ignore because with how jobs have been changed over time and outscaled, a lot of this content, even with 7 players, we were able to clear this fight with very little issue. It took us 3 attempts. However, while those are all negatives, I think that while it is underwhelming for a first fight because it was brand new for them trying this kind of thing, I think it's definitely a good first attempt. And the atmosphere is absolutely stellar. We go down at the beginning into all the depths of these corrupted shards. We find Bahamut's wing, which we've never really known much about Bahamut unless we played in 1.0. So being able to see him partially for real gives a real sense of scale to how big Bahamut was and how dangerous he was as an Elder Primal. And it sets a fantastic tone for the story. I'm mostly going to talk about the fight mechanics, but I do want to note that the Coil story is the best content in the entirety of A Realm Reborn. And so for these fights in particular, it may not apply to if I do this for later expansions as well, but the story is really important to me for Coils because it is so good, and these are some of my favorite videos to make. With all of that being said, I think that T1 goes in the B tier. It's a very average raid, I think, for the time period. I don't think any of the mechanics are that crazy, but also they don't really push the mold too much. It feels very stock standard for the time period. It's very different nowadays because raid design has completely shifted, but back then, this was a whole new thing. It's like mini dungeons, you know, they've been doing other content similarly, but I think that it's a very, very basic. Now we're going to go on to the second fight, T2N with the ADS, which is the first pseudo-modern raid design where if you fail the encounter with a wipe, you go back to the very start, everything resets. Whereas for T1, 3, 4, and 5 at the time, or I guess not for 4, but for 1, 3, and 5, you would reset all the way back to the loading dock, but then you would still have to walk forward or teleport in. And that applies for a lot of these fights moving forward, but this is the first one where failing puts you all the way back. This fight, I think, is really awesome because a couple things. It also has a 12-minute enrage timer, so when you start, there is a 12 clicks message that pops up up on screen. Each click is 1 minute. That's how long you have to finish the instance before everything enrages and I think you just wipe. I don't actually know what happens when you enrage because I've never seen it in any of the old videos or when we did it because we cleared in 3 attempts. It took us, I think, 6 minutes on the clear pool. The idea of building your own boss is really, really cool because depending on whichever nodes you defeat, the other nodes all get benefits of some kind. Like when you defeat the first node, all the other nodes get a damage up. When you defeat the defense node, they all get physical vulnerability downs. The only problem I have with it is that the elegant rot node, I think it's the quarantine node, is so much of an outlier compared to the rest because the elegant rot is a very interesting mechanic because it is just hot potato. If you kill it, it gives the boss a haste buff, which makes it almost impossible. So you have to leave the node alive so that you can deal with the elegant rot during the final boss, so you don't have to handle the haste buff because otherwise the vulnerability stacks on the main threat are way too high and the other abilities come out really, really fast. So besides that, I think it's really cool. I would love to see this like redone in a modern style where you have a lot of different paths to make your own boss where they all change the final outcome in like a real savage raid setting. Because of that and the fact that I love this fight so much, I'm going to stick this one in the A tier. I think it is a fantastic template of a fight. I think it wasn't implemented great at the time, but I think it has so much potential and they still did really good with it. T3 is a glorified dungeon with no boss at the end. It's very confusing if you don't know the path already, that you have to go through the circles to get down and follow that path all the way to the bottom. There's a bunch of times where you can loop back on yourself and get stuck. I know the first time I did this, that was the case. Luckily for Patchlock, I already knew the path, so it wasn't that much of an issue. None of the mobs are really that dangerous, and we cleared it with 6 players because one of our tanks was AFK going into it. So I don't have a lot to say about this. It's kind of a really boring fight. I like the atmosphere because I think going down through a shard is really cool, but that doesn't do enough to save it. And so I think T3N definitely goes in the D tier. I think it is really not worth being a raid, but it is there, and so I'm going to rank it there anyway. Next, we move on to T4. Now this one is the elevator. Is very, very similar to T3 where it's just a bunch of ad waves. However, they are far more dangerous, so they do pose a real threat, whereas in T3 and the only death was me greeting by dying to an obliterate for no reason. This one though has real mechanics where you have to keep the dreadnoughts and the clockwork bugs separated, otherwise that leads to real issues. However, there is an enrage timer that I believe is about 7 minutes, 7 or 8. It's just another very basic thing. It took us 3 pulls with 7 players. We were under mine at this point in time. When we went into this, I think we were item level 74 and it's a minimum of 77. And we had 7 players. Like the overscaling is going to, of course, affect a lot of these. But for this one in particular, I don't have a lot to say about it. It's very similar to T3 in my opinion. And while it is a bit more dangerous, I don't think that those small mechanics changes are enough to really save it. So this is another one I'm going to put into the D tier. Although I do think it is a little better than T3 because it actually does, again, have real mechanics you need to worry about, which makes it a better fight overall. Now we get to move on to the first capstone, T5, Quintania. The atmosphere in the arena are absolutely incredible. The introduction cutscene as you load into the instance is amazing. The way they do the camera work makes it look like Bahamut's claw is opening up for you as you descend. The elevator is really cool. Fighting on his claw, like in his hand, is awesome. Quintania, of course, introduced a dive bomb mechanic, which is incredibly iconic across the entire history of the game. We see it in later fights. It comes back in Nail and Bahamut, and it is just all over the place. However, it's really unfortunate that there is a cheese with the divot that lets you effectively nullify this entire mechanic. You can cheese the snake during the ads phase because originally it was so strong you had to use the vulnerabilities given by the small snakes to be able to kill it in time. But nowadays with all the outscaling, we just take the snakes away and we killed them separately and still were able to kill the snake with like 15 seconds to spare. The Neuralink and Hatch are a fantastic idea. I really do think that is a good implementation, and Fireball Conflag is really cool because the number of players in the stack affecting the next mechanic by making one harder, making the first easier makes the second harder and vice versa, is a really like pick your poison kind of thing. If you have really good healers, you might take the stack with only 4 people, which gives you a much longer time on the conflagration to free the trapped player, especially if it's someone really important. Whereas, of course, we had some times where we would take 6 people in it and just not be able to kill it in time based on crit RNG. So I think that is a really cool implementation. Unfortunately, twisters are really problematic because of the ARR server side jank, and it carries over into UCOD Cobb when we get there. It has gotten a lot better because they have fixed the servers, but it hasn't completely solved the problem. So I think it is still a bit rough to do twisters, but at the same time, as long as you're paying good attention, you'll probably be fine. It's a very good first capstone. I think it does a fantastic job of definitely bringing more intrigue into the coils, especially because of the Neuralink and Twintania as a whole, especially her return later, but we'll get to that when we talk about Bahamut. So I think all of it is great, amazing mechanics that are iconic to the game as a whole. And so I think because of that, Twintania absolutely deserves an A tier. And I think it is better than T2. I think it is a great fight. I don't think it's S tier because there's a lot of issues. The fact that you can skip multiple mechanics and that twisters are kind of a little weird. Now we get to move on to the second coils. I have a lot more knowledge about because I spent more time learning them than I did for the first ones because all of them took far longer, especially for the normal ones. We'll get to the Savages later. Those are later down the list. But for Rafflesia normal mode, so T6N, Floral Trap having the non-intuitive counterplay of hiding in the bramble patches is really cool. The fact that you also, again, get to use your utility skills like Surecast, which you could do on Twintania as well, but if you choose it doesn't matter. But being able to Surecast, it's an awesome solution to a mechanic as an alternative. So like, let's say you can't make it to the bramble patch. This is something we end up using in Savage, which again, I'll get to when we get to Savage, but sometimes you just have to Surecast to make sure things don't go bad. And the fact that you have that as an alternative option means that it has more counterplay, which is something that I appreciate in terms of design. Blighted Bouquet is Maeve's favorite mechanic in this fight. It reminds her of Ordained Stillness from her favorite fight, which is T. One of the problems I have with this fight, one of the major problems, similarly to Twintania, is that, and Caduceus, is that a bunch of the mechanics can be ignored. There is a cheese strat for super slugs, which we did implement on our clear pull, where we killed 2 of the slugs, had the third one eat all 3 slugs, and then killed that slug as fast as we could to just skip all of that. And the fact that you also only see Leaf Storm at 35% or 30%, it was either, I think it was 30%. Leaf Storm was at 40%. So when it happens at 40%, it really has so little time left in the fight that you really don't get to experience a lot of it. And if you do the super slug, it makes finishing the rest of it negligible. Swarm is just a glorified tank buster. It's just a lot of the stuff in that fight is really basic. And I get it's again a first floor of a new tier. They're working things out, but it's not great of a fight, but I don't think it's bad enough to go in the same tier with these. So I think Rafflesia goes solidly into the C tier. I think it's a low C because it doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities to it, but I don't think it's as bad as these are. Next, we have Melusine. We have been working on the Savage like a lot at the time of recording this. I think we're like 15 hours in or something, and we only just saw the Prosector die. So we're like getting close to clear ready, but we're not there yet. And this fight, even the normal mode of this fight, is so janky. The Gaze's timings are so weird. Literally in our clear pull, I turned to her for like half a second in the normal mode at the very end of the fight and turn away immediately. And despite the fact that she still has like, I think it's like a fifth of the cast bar of petrifaction left, I still get petrified, despite the fact that I wasn't looking at her at the end of the gaze. Whereas there's other times where I feel like I look at her full on when it runs out and I don't get gazed. The fact that you can turn at weird times and petrify people, even if it doesn't visually match it for you because of server ticks, everything about the back end of this fight is just so chaotic. The fact that you're able to cheese the Renaud by permas petrifying it, which is going to come back in Savage, is something that I think is irrelevant as a mechanic because you just do it once. You do it the first time, then after that you just kill every Renaud afterwards, except for that one, and then you have a very stable fight after that. It also is a fight that I think has some of the highest individual responsibility in, I would say, almost the entire game, because you have Cursed Voices, which everyone has to aim away. You have the Cursed Shriek, which is to make sure that they're hiding far enough back to not gaze everybody on accident. There's the Renaud kiting, which especially in the Savage is a significant difficulty. And we have the Allegan Venoms that come from the Venomous Tails, which gives healers a lot more responsibility because they have to drop everything to attune to everybody. Otherwise, that's radiating out huge raid wides. And it's just, everything about this fight is so weird. Because of that, I think it's just a D tier fight. It is not fun. It took us 45 minutes to clear it, and it felt like it took an eternity because this fight is not enjoyable, especially when we get to the Savage. I have a lot more to say about Melusine. I did not enjoy doing Melusine normal mode. I think the mechanics are an interesting idea. I just think they could have been implemented better, and I think that with 14's backend the way it was is just not good enough to support a fight of this caliber. Next, we get to move on to the Avatar in T8. Now, this fight is interesting because it harkens back a bit to T2, where it's kind of a build-a-boss, where every single sequence there are towers that spawn. You have, I believe it's 2 defensive towers, which are just raid wides, 1 mines tower, which drops mines that need to be exploded, and an adds tower that summons an Allegan dreadnoughts. The thing is, the towers appear every sequence. You get to decide the order and timings for when the towers go off. You get to effectively make a timeline for this fight, and it will remain consistent because things don't change between sequences. They're all the same. It is probably the most consistent fight in the entirety of the coils, and is something where if you make a game plan, you can 80% of the time follow it through. And this will again come back when I get to the Savage. There's a lot to talk about for these Savages. I know I keep saying that, but there is a lot to talk about for the Savages. But for the most part, you can cheese the enums, which I think is a real annoying thing that they fixed in the Savage, and I don't think it was in a good way. But if you just have everyone stacked together, and then anyone who's not stunned moves away, and then you have like 3 people who make adjustments depending on what the enums are, it makes it so simple. Like it's so easy to solve enums. And Elegant Field, I think, is a really cool mechanic and concept where it's like it's protect the player, which of course gives the shield healer a lot of responsibility, which when we get to the Savage, I'll have more to talk about. But I think it's really cool the way Elegant Field works. So I'm going to put this fight solidly into B tier. And I think it is better than Caduceus. I think this fight is great. Unfortunately, the fact that you can cheese some of the mechanics, I think I'm talking myself out of it. No, I think it's a low A. I think this fight is a low A tier. I put B. I talked to May yesterday. We agreed it was B, but I think for me it's an A, just because I think it's such a cool concept. And the fact that there's only really one downside in that the enum cheese is possible, I think it definitely deserves A slot, just barely, because it's better than an average fight. Now, we are going to get to probably the most iconic fight in the entirety of the coils, and I don't think that's an understatement. T9, and we have Nail. Tempest is a great song. I cannot tell you how hard it was to find the song when I was trying to put it in the streams, but I did find it. I think it's a interesting song. However, I feel like the atmosphere for it doesn't necessarily fit the fight, but no one can deny how good Rise of the White Raven is as a song. It is amazing. It is intense. It happens right after Nail casts Mega Flare, which destroys the entire arena and completely changes it. It's so climactic. It's so atmospheric. It's amazing. Heaven's Fall literally summons a Dalabad shard to pierce the earth. It's so amazing. It's the first actual modern design because you spawn into the arena with the boss sitting there and all you do is fight the boss over and over and over again. So this is like a true modern raid. It has really good mechanics. You have tank busters all over the place. You have multiple raid wides. You have everything across the board. You have spreads, everything. Like it is a really good array of mechanics that test a lot of things for the players and their abilities to react to situations. There are some negatives. First, Meteor Cheese is, I'm glad we found it with Mario Kart. I don't know how I feel about its existence because I think it very heavily trivializes the mechanic. And so it makes it kind of negligible, except for the tanks when they have to take the golems around to eat the rocks. I also think that some of the dynamo jank, some of the lightning struck jank, even just the dragon jank in general, it's just kind of not amazing. The dragon spawning in preset patterns is nice, so you can kind of know what to do in advance, but ice, fire, and lightning just kind of feel weird sometimes when they come out, and this is going to come back again in the Savage. I keep saying that. But all of these things, you know, dwarf in the comparison of the positives, because we also have all of the utility abilities having usage. You have to use Interject on the Earth Shock. You can use Surecast at arm's length in Heaven's Fall. Everything has utility, and I think it's really good. It also has some of the most iconic mechanics of the game. We have Heaven's Fall. We have Dive Bombs again. We have Iron Chariot and Lunar Dynamo, which people still call mechanics today. We have the Meteor Drops, which are very iconic. They even come back when Nail gets revamped in a later fight in the Cinderdrift. Like all of these mechanics, all of them come back, except for I believe exactly Dive Bombs don't come back. We get Meteor Stream though to come back. They know what makes Nail so interesting. There's so many good things about this fight. It's really, really iconic. It's a really strong fight. It's an amazing capstone because she's actually hard. To be fair, we did it at minus 12 item level for a while, so that made it a lot harder. And then we got stonewalled in final phase on Dynamo Lightnings, which we eventually learned how to solve. It's really hard for me because Maeve was like, it's an S tier fight, and I'm like, I think it's A tier because there's some problems, and now I'm fighting with myself to figure out where to place answer. I think I have to go with Maeve on this one. I think Nail's an S tier fight. Absolutely. It is so many positives. It's a really tough fight. And I think it's really good. Yeah, there's the Meteor Cheese, but that's kind of Meteor Cheese and the Dragon Jank are the only things I can say about it. And the Dragon Jank can be mitigated as long as you just have people, you know, waiting a little longer to do things and not like pre-positioning like you can in modern fight. Snapshotting it is for the dragons is a little weird, but as long as you account for that and know that you are accounting for it in advance, I think it's definitely a great fight. Now we get to move on to Final Coil, starting with T10 and Imdagud. The approach on Imdagud, I haven't really talked much about the approach for the other fights, especially in second coil. They're all just kind of whatever. None of them are really that interesting. Now for T10 though, we have the Clockwork Bugs, which summon ads when they see players and start aggroing. You have to fight at least 2 of them because you have to fight the first patch, and then when it comes to the second group, you do have to fight one of them. And so it makes the approach very boring, and the fact that you have to stealth past the second set by hiding in the corners means that it's really slow to start. And this is just to get to the boss. Once you get to the boss though, it's nothing special. The most interesting thing about it is that it uses Wild Charge, which is the first time we see that mechanic, and things nowadays are actually called Wild Charges. I know when I was progging Wicked Thunder, I literally called it Wild Charge multiple times when she did these mechanics. The fact that we still use these names, I don't hear like Nail stuff as much, but I hear Wild Charge all the time. And so the fact that it is such an iconic mechanic, but the boss itself is so simple. The only other relevant mechanics it has is Heat Lightning, which is just spread, and it happens so often that you just need to spend most of your time spread out unless you're doing exactly Wild Charge. And Prey Markers, which are a heavy responsibility on the shield healer, and I can tell you from running that fight as Scholar, it is a pain because you have to have really fast reaction time because you only get 6 seconds before the praise go off. Adlocuium takes 2.5 seconds on the recast time, so it takes like 4.5 seconds to put out your Adlo shields, and you have to put it out before Prey registers, which of course the shield doesn't consider apply until the heal goes on their health bar, which is, I wish it didn't visibly show the shield until they got the heal, so it didn't feel like I got cheesed out of it, but whatever. It's really hard during the ads phase to keep double Prey in check without people who could shield themselves. So I think it's just so janky. It's not good. I would say it's not a good mechanic, and I think the boss is extremely basic as a result. So it's a little worse than average, so I think I'm going to put it in the C tier. Behind Rafflesia, I definitely think Rafflesia is a better fight. Next, we are going to move on to Kalia, which I think personally is my favorite coils fight. However, I need to talk about it first. The atmosphere is great because you are literally entering a mini moon of Dalamud where Bahamut is actually being kept, and that is amazing ambiance and atmosphere. I think it's really cool. The lead up though is really annoying because the party's required to split in half. Well, I guess you're not required to split in half and clear 2 sides. We could have for the first group gone together, but split for it. But for the second match, you are forced to split apart into 2 4s, kill 2 groups of ads, and then wait on buttons until they fill, and then you can move forward. So it's a lot of waiting. It's killing ads very slowly because there's only half of you at a time. It's a very boring lead up. When Maeve was going in to get pictures and video for me to put into the episode, she had to deal with how long it takes solo to get to the boss. It is ridiculous how long it takes. However, talking about the boss itself, the first phase is extremely simple. It gives you time to learn all the mechanics. It was just, I think, a really good first phase because it literally teaches you every single mechanic you're going to see in a later phase. I think the ads phase is kind of frustrating because earlier in T2, we saw repelling cannons, which is just an AoE centered around the node that you want to avoid. Whereas this time, repelling cannons is now an untelegraphed stack marker for players in melee range of the node. Like, why would you change it? Just call it something else. Even if you use the same animation, just use a different name. So it's like, it makes it hard to know for certain. You cannot register a mechanic based on its name. You have to look at each one individually. And this is something I think is a little negative about the design. There's effectively a forced limit break for the first nerf cloud because the boss is a guaranteed crit. So if you don't have LB3, you're probably not surviving, which is a little annoying as it's a forced check, though you have long enough. I believe killing the nodes also grants limit. You should get limit break 3 by then, but the fact that it's the first effectively forced one is a little annoying for a non-capstone fight, but that's just me not really liking forced limit breaks personally. However, this fight does have my absolute favorite mechanic so far, which is Nanospore Jet. I love this mechanic. I know Maeve hates it. I know a couple other people in the fight hated it, but I adore it. I think positioning is something I really like. One of the few things that I'm looking forward to in later fights, maybe not to the top level of positioning requirement with being pixel perfect, but I like the idea of having to use the little space you have in a meaningful way. And with Nanospore Jet, you have to, because when it comes to all the nerf cloud casts, you have to adjust depending on where the boss is facing, which version of the attack it's using, and you can't get too close to the partners. So the way we solved it was to do them on both sides with your color matching the marker and then just staying as close to your marker as you could depending on which attack it was doing. It wasn't an easy fight because people were really struggling to figure out how to do Nanospore Jet, but the fact that we were able to come up with a solution like that and be able to execute on it, I think is something that just, I love this. I love this mechanic. I think it's great because it takes the easy mechanics and puts a really big twist on them to make them hard without changing the mechanics. None of the first mechanics are different. We just have the Nanospore Jet addition and it completely changes the feeling of the fight in the final phase. I just absolutely love the feeling of that mechanic. I think it's great. So because of that, you would think I would put it in S tier, but the problem is that I have really severe issues with the lead up being so annoying and with the repelling cannon specifically being a problem. So because of that, unfortunately, I have to drop the A tier. It's a super high A, but I think it definitely isn't an S tier fight. It has some glaring issues. Now, next we have Phoenix, which follows in line with Nail about being another modernish raid style fight. The cutscene, lead-in, and music are absolutely stellar. They are so phenomenal. They are absolutely amazing. I cannot get over how good they are. From the Ashes is amazing. I tried to get From the Ashes in multiple videos and one of them got copyrighted. And so I had to go out of my way really far to make sure I could use it in the video. And I'm glad I was able to, and it hasn't been hit yet, which is something I really, really appreciate because I think it adds so much flavor. It's such a good song because there's the answer surprise in it for Bahamut because, you know, Louis Suave is the thrall and it's so good. I know the intro cutscene to it is like 15 minutes long, but the fact that it's voiced, we get to hear Alice again. We have not heard Alice since she left Alphino in like level 15 quest in the MSQ. So we have not heard her since like early 2.0. And so the fact that we get to hear her talk again, we get to see their interaction with their grandfather again. Oh, it's so good. I love it so much. The fact that black fire, white fire, red fire, and blue fire are mechanics that interact with each other in unique ways, I think makes it a very dynamic fight, especially the way that you can solve the mechanics, because you can also choose to just not hit the black fires with white fire and you can still kill them. I think they only have like 11,000 HP. And if you hit them with the white fire, they go down to 2,000, which makes them easier to kill, but they're not like hard to kill by themselves. Having that all as a main mechanic, I think is fun. The Bennu needing to be spaced apart so they don't revive and buff each other is something that definitely makes the later phases engaging, probably why they brought it back in Suzaku later. It's really good tank responsibility, which gives them something to do. There's a lot of healer responsibility with the Flames of Purgation. Flames of Unforgiveness is what it's called, sorry. All of that together like gives a lot of responsibility to the supports, and I think that it's a really good fight overall. And honestly, for me, besides those things, it's kind of basic, so you would think it'd be a B tier, but I think it is carried so hard by the story parts of it and From the Ashes being such a good song that I think this is going to be, for me, the bottom of A tier. I think it is an amazing fight and it's a good prelude. Now we get to move on to, of course, T13 and Bahamut himself. Again, the atmosphere is absolutely unreal. The animations for Bahamut using Aquamorn and Flare Breath and Mega Flare and Giga Flare and Terra Flare, they're all phenomenal. The arena itself is really cool because it's just floating in an abyss on this thing, and then Bahamut descends into the arena in the intro cutscene. Oh, the way they use answers, absolutely amazing. I loved it so much. The sound effects are all great. He really does feel like he's just absolutely fighting you with an insane veracity. He has Aquamorn, which we see more of later, which we won't see till post Heavensward, actually, which is funny. We'll see a variant of it, I think, in the level 55 dungeon in Heavensward, but we got to get there first. Earthshakers are absolutely iconic. They come back far later. They're in so many other fights, but then also it's healed slash commit check the fight. We did this at -5 and we're afraid it wouldn't be possible. And then with a mitt, we were able to survive Mega Flare with under 100 HP, which meant we were going to push it, which gave me a lot of responsibility. The tanks have so much they have to mitigate, and Mega Flare is incredible as a mechanic. As the fight goes on, it gets more and more added to it with the 2 towers. So you start with 1 tower in second phase, and then once you get past the adds in final phase, there's a second tower. And I think all of these come together to make it so that Bahamut is fighting more desperately the deeper you get into the fight. And it shows because he's fighting more erratically, you know, throwing out more Mega Flare fireballs, I guess, so that they land on the towers and do more. He's fighting so hard to stop you. However, the adds phase is so abysmal. Like, the dive bombs come back, which is fine. It comes with the pairs of the Mega Flare, which again, I think is fine. But the adds, like even at -5 IL, with only ARR jobs because we allowed Ninja at this time, we still cleared the adds with a bunch of time to spare and just got to sit there waiting for the next ads to spawn. While there are mechanics in the adds, even under mine, it's still doable and it's just very, very easy. And I think that brings it down heavily because it's a phase that just is boring. I think for me, it cannot be an S because of how much you have to sit through that ads phase. It's like 2.5 minutes of waiting because it is timed. It is actually timed. So I think it has to go into the A tier. It'll go above Twintania, but below Kaliak. With the normal coils finished, we get to now move on to the Savages. And I have a lot more to talk about for these, as I alluded to when I did the normal modes. So Rafflesia Savage. The video for this fight, I think, is one of the best ones I think I ever made. I wish it did better, but the fight itself, I don't think, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think the fight deserved to have a video like that made of it. I think it was super easy overall compared to what we had to come. I think it should have been cleared a lot sooner. And so I should note that this one is colored by my personal internal traumas that are in the video. Want to remember what that was like? You can always go back and rewatch the video. I would highly recommend it, of course. Make sure to leave a comment and all that stuff, you know? But when it comes to Rafflesia Savage as a fight, the Briary Growth changes, giving the boss a Vuln down, I think are really good. I think they're cool because then you can't just sort of ignore the mechanic by killing the bulbs, and you need them anyway. So it makes the arena a bit harder to traverse, which definitely means that you can get some really bad RNG, which can really segment off the arena in ways that make it really hard to maneuver Rafflesia. We ran into that frequently when we were doing the fight, but at the same time, it gives you more real estate to handle being safe from the floral traps. However, this was super important that we remember that you can sure cast it, which made all the difference in us being able to clear the fight. The slugs are kind of the epitome of ARR jank. They are really, really, really weird, very annoying to deal with. And because we had a summoner in the party, it actually made our DPS a lot harder until we moved Maeve off of range duty and made her a fake melee. So then she could actually damage the boss because she had to neuter herself to not summon on the other slimes. Otherwise, she would risk phasing them too early. And so once that change was made, I think it made it a lot better. I hate Rotten Stench with a passion. I think that the fact that you have sort of a 50-50 on a good pattern versus a bad pattern, as I said in the video, I'm calling one the point, which is where 4 players are tethered to 1 player. Then there's the box where 4 players are tethered to each other by 2 tethers each to make sort of a box pattern. The way you solve the point is you just have the 1 player who is tethered to everybody run far away, staying in the line AoE. And the way you solve the box, which I didn't describe in the video, is that you have 2 players on one side switch places and then stretch. And that was so hard for us to execute whenever we got it. If we got a deep run and we got a box, we had to just improvise. Like even in the clear pool, you'll see me run off into Narnia to break the tethers. Once the stack goes off, I run sideways to just break it because we were really bad about doing the box. And I think the fact that you have a sort of a 50-50 shot on that is kind of annoying. Swarm is also really problematic because you need to spread swarm between your light parties, and there is effectively a 50-50 shot that Rafflesia will just target another player in the same light party when she does the second target, which is bad because then it means that you have to spread the swarm between people who already have a stung debuff, which means they're taking 90% max health damage, which tanks can't do. So it's like that is another level of RNG that's really frustrating about this fight. And so with all of this together, there's some good things about this fight. Like I said, I think Briary Growth is cool, but that's like all I have to say about it. It's positive. So I think this fight is a D tier fight. I'd say Melusine Normal's better, which is hilarious given what's coming next. And actually, I think I'm going to change the order. I'm going to do the Savages. I'm going to do these in the order that we've been doing them. So I'll do them 987 instead. But yes, Rafflesia, I can't say more. There's just nothing else to say about it. But next we have Nail. Now I do want to note spoilers at this point. We have cleared Nail Savage, and I'm going to be talking about that. We have also cleared Avatar Savage. So if you don't want any spoilers on these fights, I will just tell you where they sit right now. I think that Nail is, I'm conflicted between B and C tier. I think I would put it at a very low B tier. And I think that Avatar Avatar Savage is an A tier fight, probably sitting right below Bahamut. Those are the placements. If you want to know nothing about any of the things that we talked about or that we did for those fights till the videos come out, feel free to skip to the timestamp listed on screen, and I'll give you just a second to do that before I start talking about Nail. All right, so if you want to know about what my thoughts are for Nail, which does have some of the mechanics we used to solve it, we're going to start by talking about the meteors. In an effort to make the meteors uncheesable, now there's a chance for players to get 2 meteor drops at the same time. Whereas originally, because there were 6 meteors and they all dropped individually, we could just do Mario Kart and it would solve the problem. Now, because 2 meteors drop at the same time, we can't really react to that easily. The way we had to solve it is to stand in a different setup where we stood in our clock spots and then ran out to the wall and back and forth to do it. And so having to spread those meteors is weird because also there's a chance that you get a triple meteor drop on one player, which if any of your neighbors get a meteor makes it really jank for that setup, which is problematic. There's so much to say about Nail in that regard. Like meteors alone is probably the worst mechanic in any of these, second worst mechanic in any of these fights so far. I keep forgetting Melusine is awful. I think meteors is a huge negative. The random dragon dives can make it extremely difficult in final phase where you're already really stressed out. It's already a really hard phase. And then you have to deal with the dragon dives on top of meteor streams that hit harder than normal because she has damage ups on top of a meteor drop, on top of double lightning drops, on top of so many things. The Ravenspeak explosion for the tank also I think goes off here. It's just, there's so much going on that's like brutal about final phase. And the dragon dives make it really, really hard. Honestly, the worst thing about this fight is the fact that progging it was like a 6-minute cutscene before you got to any real prog, because phase 1 is really simple. Phase 2 is timed, just like Bahamut, which is a major negative. I might bump it down to C. All of that together is just like with multiple RNG checks, because if you get a triple meteor, you're done. If you get bad heavens fall RNG, you're done. It's really annoying because when we were trying to do final phase to get better at it, because we were having a lot of whites to the first Lunar Dynamo, and we were trying to come up with strategies to solve it, but we had to get there to try them to see how they worked out. We had to sit through these cutscenes with multiple RNG checks, and if any one of the RNG checks failed, well, it was back to the start and try again. And it was very frustrating. Random auto attack crits can also just end deep runs. Like there were runs where, you know, the tank just got crit for 3000 HP in phase 3, and well, back to the start for you, because now Nail's running rampant on the rest of the party because the off tank is dealing with the Ghost of Mericidia. It's so infuriating because if Nail does auto Bahamut's Claw, auto crit, your tank's just dead. One of the things that made this fight feel feasible is that I came up with a special strategy for final phase where when you did Dynamo, you normally had the entire party, 2 lightnings, and the Ravenspeak tank that was about to explode. So we had 3 explosions and the party. The way we wanted to do it is we have the Ravenspeak tank run out and the 2 lightnings go to the sides. The Ravenspeak tank would be in front of Nail going out. The lightnings would be on either side of Nail going out. Now the party would be standing right behind Nail inside the Dynamo. However, we still were dying. And so what I said is, well, the way to solve this is just to remove the Ravenspeak explosion, because we can solve it otherwise. We've done it before. So I had the tank with the Ravenspeak soak it and then go walk into the death wall and we revive them. So we just get to ignore that part of the mechanic. And that was the missing piece for us to make the clear pull. It's a really interesting idea that helps make it a little simpler. Still putting in the cheese. I think it was the difference maker in being able to clear Nail, which was a big deal because we were already struggling a lot. And I don't even know how long Nail was. I'm assuming it was probably 20-ish hours of prog. It was long. And so I still have to go through and count it because I'm still writing the script for the Nail video. But I think that's enough about Nail. I think it's solid low B, high C. It's one of the two. I think I'm just going to go with low B for now, and I think it's fine. Now we're going to talk about Avatar Savage. Avatar Savage is, I think, all the same positives of the normal mode. However, mines can be more problematic with Allegan Field RNG. There were pulls where I would get Allegan Field, sit in the corner, and the mines would spawn, both of the ones in front of me, and the tower next to me was occupied. So I couldn't walk into it as a safe spot. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is a white hole then, because I have Allegan Field. It got changed in Savage so that you take 5 times the damage rather than double. So if the Allegan Field takes like realistically any damage, even non-meaningful damage, it's a wipe. And it's kind of frustrating. Situations like that just kind of make it really tough. Ballistic missile changes I don't think are positive, where they now knock everybody else away so you can't cheese it by having everyone stand together. And you can technically cheese this if you do it a specific way, but it's really hard based on server ticks and everything. If you pre-position for it poorly, it can also make things really bad and has at one point killed a person by having bad ballistic missile RNG. Once again, enemy crit RNG can just kill the run. I've had, when dealing with the ad and the boss, they both crit the tanks at the same time and wipe the raid, which was great. However, one of the positives of this, like I said in the normal mode, is that about 80% of the pulls will follow a preset plan. So like this fight is, especially for the Savage, is scripted. We were following a straight script on what towers to proc when, how to handle everything, where to do Allegan field timings, and all that stuff. It was redone. There's a great T8S guide that I'm going to link in the description when we do the video. I'm not going to put it here now, but if you want to look it up, it's Lucky Trinket Guide. We were following that pretty much to a T, and it made the fight actually feel like we were making real progress occasionally, unless we had like really stupid early mistakes. And I definitely think of this as the easiest of all the Coils fights because of the fact that it feels the most like a modern raid in the fact that it's very scripted. And so I think with that, I'm done with those fights. So now we have to talk about T7S and how absolutely different Melusine Savage is. I do want to note again, this is the only fight on this list we have not cleared yet. We have just gotten over about halfway through the fight. Actually, I guess we're more like 2/3 because Melusine kind of melts once you get past the Prosector. I think our record is 44%, but this fight, oh my god, this fight. I had a lot of negatives to say about the normal mode, and the Savage takes it to the absolute extreme. Sorry, it takes it to the Savage. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be, especially with the gaze jank, because the servers have been worked on to be a little more consistent, but they definitely haven't been fixed well. We still have a lot of times where gazes come out at weird positions, and like even when we are certain we're positioning a certain way, server tick RNG is just cringe and leads to random petrifications. Oh, I should mention, petrifications were extended from 10 seconds to a minute! And because you're not actually dead, it's worse than dying because you're unable to take any actions, and if you just don't get targeted by any attacks, well, guess what? You are stuck there doing absolutely nothing for a minute. The Renauds now get petrification immunity if you petrify them once, so you cannot cheese the fight. There's 2 Renauds now that spawn at a time, which makes kiting them extremely difficult. The gaze timings are jank. There's also the best part of this fight. There's 2 different timelines you have to keep in sync for the entirety of the boss fight. She has health threshold mechanics, which once you push her past certain thresholds, she'll change her mechanic sets, which you need to line up the cursed shrieks with the time-based Renaud spawns. If you push her too fast, the Renaud spawns will be out of sync, and it will be really, really bad for voices and shrieks. We've had multiple phase 3 wipes to push in the boss too quickly, and not having Renauds in position to petrify when we get their gazes, and it's just so bad. It has the highest individual responsibility of any fight, almost any fight in the entire game. I said this beforehand, but like there's so much you have to keep track of. You have to watch your own gazes, you have to make sure you handle the shriek correctly. The kiters have so much responsibility. The healers are usually the ones that are gazing, so they have a huge amount of responsibility. They have to do Asunas for the Allegan Venom. The tanks have to make sure they stay alive while the healers are gazing the Renauds, because after the 3rd phase, there's 4 gazes going out. Both healers get it, and they're gazing Renauds after that phase continuously, so there's no healing coming out during those times. The tanks have to mitigate really well, and just there's so much going on. The boss getting a damage up when gazed, it's a 30% damage up. Kind of just ends the run, especially if it happens early, because on mine, the bards are barely surviving Circle Flames. They're taking like 3,500 health out of their 5,000. If she gets a damage up, they're taking 5,000 damage out of their like 5,000 health. It's ridiculous. This fight is actually insane. It is the worst fight I've ever played, ever, like actually ever. I absolutely despise this fight so much. It's so bad. So Melusine gets the special position of the Hell tier as the worst fight in the entire game. We're gonna figure out if there's other ones later, but with that all finished, all the raids done, we now need to cover the extremes. First, we're gonna talk about Ultima. It was a Minstrel's Ballad fight. It's not even an extreme. I came out in 2.1 alongside the first 3 primals, but it's also such an easy fight. Literally, we cleared it with 7 players, and we almost cleared it with only 1 healer. The only relevant mechanic is the Theroplasm Orbs. The Primal Roulette is just an absolute joke, and literally, Maeve and I had to go rewatch our original clear because we literally didn't remember any of the mechanics outside of Theroplasm Orbs. Like, it was bad. Like, this fight is so nothing. I really have nothing else to say about it. It's just an awful fight. I'd put this in D tier. I think it's better than Melusine because at least it's not hard, but god, is it so forgettable. I think I'm actually going to move this one below Melusine. Let's do that. We'll do this order for now. Next, we have Garuda. Her only real mechanic is Spiny Plume. Everything else is really basic. Half of them aren't even lethal, and one of the Spiny Plumes you can kind of ignore by using Tank LB if you have it. I think she's much better used in Ubu, and the rest of her mechanics, Karada and Suparna, are pretty much nothing. The off tank just takes them away. You kill them one at a time, and then you're done with that whole thing. Like, it's just over. I don't think Garuda is that interesting. I wish they had done her a little better, but like I said, in Ubu, I think she's implemented far, far better. So I think she goes solidly in C tier. I think she's better, though, than Imdagud. Next, we have EX3, which is Titan. This fight is really good about rewarding niche techs. So, like, if you know about jail splitting, so which we'll need to do for some mechanics, like when he does upheaval, you want to break the first one and then get knocked back, break the second one, then prepare for landslides. Landslide is a great mechanic. Holding Titan on the edge of the arena. People will walk to the edge and hold him there, but you can get him closer by walking to the side and then back, so he positions a little closer to the wall, which gives you you a little more space to handle landslides and upheavals. The jailers are good adds because they are additional stage hazards. They give a lot of tank responsibility. When it comes to the bomb boulders that come later, tanking on this, it feels great because of the responsibilities about keeping Titan in a specific spot, you know, moving him for the upheaval positionings, handling all the stuff for the jailers, all of it together feels good. And unfortunately, he dies really fast, so you don't really get a chance to do any of the harder bomb boulder patterns. But I think overall, it's a pretty well done fight. So I'm going to put it in B tier. So we're going to put it there. Next, we're going to move our way on to Ifrit. Now, there's a lot to say about Ifrit, but again, I'm going to keep these concise because I have been going for a lot longer than I expected. I expected this video to be under 20 minutes, and I have now, as of this moment, been recording for almost an hour. So let's start cutting this down a little bit. Ifrit has some major issues. I think Searing Wind is far too punishing for an extreme, because if you get hit by it, you probably die on the spot. You're taking pretty much your entire health bar damage on mine, and so Searing Wind will pretty much kill you on the spot at mine unless you are full health with a shield, and even then, it's so punishing. The tether on the tank is really bad because it just means that the tank is taking more damage from being separated. It's also gutting the DPS because the tank can't go stand next to the DPS if they got targeted. It's so bad if you get that random RNG. The nails are a great idea, but I think final nail set is a bit too much. You have 90 seconds to kill 13 nails, one of which requires an LB to break in time on top of everything else going on. I just think it's rough, and Radiant Plume is just awful. If you don't know where to stand safely, you are just screwed. And I know for me, that was the hardest mechanic of the fight because I kept dying to it because I didn't know where the safe spot was to stand. And so I would consistently get caught by the Radiant Plumes and die, and it in some ways cost us the entire run because of it. Maeve literally had to place markers in the safe spots for me to be able to position and not get clipped by the Radiant Plume. And she had to warn me when it was coming because I couldn't follow it in the fight. I think Ifrit is definitely a low D tier fight. I think it's better than Rafflesia because Rafflesia's jank is really bad, but Ifrit just has some, I think, poorly implemented mechanics. Now we have to move on to Maeve's favorite fight, King Mugomog. Now this fight is the first true ads boss because once he summons the ads after taking 10% of his health, he becomes invincible and you have to handle all of the Muggles. And there's a lot of responsibility again for other jobs. The mechanic variety is really good and varied. Like there's a lot of things to do. Like you have to handle the Black Mage trying to cast the meteor. The tanks have to handle the Muggles Guard tanks as well, which are constantly putting out debuffs and doing a lot of damage. When it comes to the rogue, it just puts the poison in the middle of the arena, which can be annoying. There's just so much going on, and you have to position the king away from the bard, which is a huge tank responsibility. I did clear this fight on tank. I should specify that I think from this point on, I did a lot of tank clears for these trials. So being able to maneuver the king around, I think was really fun. The worst part of this fight is the other players because the players will kill the Muggles because like, oh, it's low, let's kill it. And then you waste one of your 3 revives, or you get 2 revives before he enrages. And if you don't do at least 40% on each revive, you pretty much wipe the raid because you can't be the DPS check at the end. He's only able to be hit once all the Muggles die. So the other players are the worst part of this fight. And I think besides that, I think it would be an A tier fight if not for the fact that you have party members. But because of that, I think it solidly goes in low B tier. I think it's the bottom of B tier for sure. This fight can be extremely frustrating. I know for us, we had multiple instances where people would just kill the mobs when we weren't supposed to, and we told them not to, and they would just kill them anyway because, oh, low health, that's a good thing. Let's kill it. Anyway, we're going to move on to Leviathan next. Leviathan is good for ambiance. I think it's a cool idea. My main issues with the fight are the Wave 2 Sahagin are abysmal. If you don't kill them really fast, they put down the Hysteria field, which could then Hysteria chain you because you walk into it, you get Hysteria, you run around randomly, and then you walk into it again because the random walking, and then you get re-Hysteria for the full timer. One time, Maeve got stuck in a corner with a Hysteria field placed where she was standing, and she was stuck in the corner and got Hysteria for like 45 seconds before she died. It's so awful. The Elemental Converter, same issue as Mugomog. It gets triggered too early constantly, immediately wiping the party. And Briny Mirror, I think those are a really cool mechanic because it does require the healers to pay attention to what's going on. Otherwise, they and everyone else gets punished for it. So I think with all of this combined, it has some positives and some negatives that I think balance each other out. So I think because I'm actually going to put Leviathan in B tier, just above Titan. No, it's below Titan. Or sorry, not B tier. This goes in C tier. I read the wrong thing. I think it's a C tier fight, below Garuda. Next, we have Ramuh. Now, this one is weird for me, but I'm going to talk through it a little bit here so that I can kind of make a final decision on it. So this is a fight that is extremely difficult out the gate. You have to, as a tank, you have to run around and grab 3 orbs from the Thunderstorm extremely quickly because there's about to be a shock strike on the main threat. And so one of you needs to pick up the orbs so that you can protect yourself from the shock strike that's about to come out. There's also the first chaotic strike, which if it targets the off tank is problematic because now it means they can't grab the orbs, which means as a main threat, you have 5 seconds to grab 3 orbs, assuming they didn't grab any. The beginning of the fight can be such incredibly bad RNG. I think for tanks, it's a low lower tier. I think the Grey Arbiters are a really good DPS check. They require sort of being able to spread out around the arena and focus things. The main tank still needs to hold. The main threat is still taking shock strikes and everything, so they need to position like away from the party. There's still other attacks coming out all the time. Chaotic strike positioning is really important. Tank buster shielding is really fun. Going to grab the orbs requires a lot of awareness of the tanks, and I really like that there's a penalty for overcharging. If you get the surge protection and then get an extra orb, you get static condensation, which still counts as surge protection, but you get reduced healing. And I think it's a good tutorial for new players that you don't always want to just go all in on things. And it comes back, of course, when we get to Ramuh later in Eden. I think this is a fight that, like, even more than other fights, rewards knowledge for players, like knowing when it's safe to walk into the water, where and when it's safe to position, all of that stuff. I think it's really good. And the music, of course, is absolutely traumatizing for every mentor, as Maeve can attest. So I think for me, because I did this on tank, I would put this in a mid B, probably here. Yeah, I think this is better. I think it goes right about here. If you were not playing tank, I think it would be a higher, like a low A, probably above Phoenix for me if I wasn't tanking it. But because I tanked it, I think the initial fight RNG is stupid. We cleared it in 2 pulls, I should specify, but I still think it's not great. Next, though, we get to move on to Shiva. Now, Shiva is amazing music. I think Footsteps in the Snow and Oblivion are both really good songs. I love Footsteps in the Snow. Maeve adores Oblivion. I think Oblivion's redo in Eden is better. I'm not going to go deeper into that because Maeve's going to tear me a new one in editing if I do. The boss design is great. She definitely looks extremely foreboding. Honestly, the fact that you get stepped on obviously makes this an auto S tier. Absolutely, come on. The tanks have a significant amount of responsibility, and it makes the fight extremely rewarding. I didn't do it on tank for the clear, but I have done it on tank since, and Maeve has done this a lot on tank. Being able to do tank swaps between weapon switches is really cool. Managing the stack markers when you get the shield bash, because that is a stack for some reason, even though it's not a normal mode. Stunning the glacier bash and the positioning of the ads. Bow, I think, is an amazing weapon addition to this fight. I think it's great because it's a whole new facet, whereas like everything else was kind of just spread, stack, and that was kind of it. It was like spread or stack, and now you have access to the 270-degree cone around her that you have to hide behind. So now it's a positioning focus thing. Again, it rewards tanks heavily for it and the party for knowing when to move. I think it's such a good fight overall. I think it's definitely an S tier fight. I don't think it's as good as Nail normal mode, but it's definitely an S tier fight. It's really, really good. And I'm kidding about the stepped on being auto S, but it definitely, of course, for a lot of people is major positive. And now finally we get to the final sort of extreme, which is Odin, hence why we put a question mark on it. This is an interesting one because it is definitely a healer focused fight, which is uncommon in a lot of these fights. So it's healer focused in the sense that there's a lot of Asunas and there's a lot of damage coming out consistently. There's tank busters that are running rampant all over the place, bleeds and slows and other debuffs that are coming out that need to be Asuna'd throughout the entire fight. There's so much going on. It actually has a real enrage that has a really tight DPS check, especially on mine. We only barely cleared it because our samurai was against us and used LB1 for no reason in the middle of the fight. If we had used LB3 at the end, we probably could have beaten the DPS check. Safer, I think we had 4 seconds left on the timer, but we did clear it, which was the difference of Maeve potting or not. And so I think the fact that it has a really tight DPS check is a good thing. The other mechanics are kind of really basic though, with very little variety. They're all just spread markers or raid wides. Like there's not even a stack in the fight. It's just spread, raid wides, or line AoEs, and you just stay away from them. So it's like, it's really kind of boring. I think the Fate is far more intimidating than the actual trial itself because the Fate is much more dangerous, and it's sort of, I think, is a better representation of how powerful and scary Odin can truly be. So I think if I were rating the Fate here, I would say the Fate is an absolute A tier. But because we're rating the trial, and I don't think it's nearly as good, it has a lot of positives, but it also has some negatives, and the mechanics being normal, I think it is just the mid of the mid fights. I think it is absolutely just an average B tier fight. And so those are all my thoughts about all of the high-end content available in A Realm Reborn. I hope you all enjoyed this little random video. I hope you'll leave a comment below with all of your thoughts about the fights on this tier list and how you think the tier list went itself. I'd love to read all of them, and I look forward to it. So I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and you look forward to Patchlock coming out next week. Take care, everybody.